How fast the night changes. What was once an empire now lies crestfallen, even as the newly crowned world champions stake massive claims at being the superpowers of this format. India, who had lost only 2 home series for the first 24 years of the century, have now lost 2 in the span of 13 months. And South Africa, who hadn't won a test series here since 2000, not only complete a series sweep, but do that by consigning India to what is their heaviest ever defeat in test cricket. Welcome to ESPNcricinfo Matchday, where we have the company of Saba Karim, who is strapped in for what will be some serious questions and a serious examination of what holds for Indian cricket in tests. But before that, the ever-beaming Vernon Philander, who's just gotten off a flight, but who is ready to soar and celebrate what is a special moment in South African cricket history, Vernon.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, first of all, congratulations to the boys over there, but a magnificent effort, to win India 2-0 in their home ground. I think it takes an epic effort. But again, it speaks sentiment, to this team and the way they've built themselves over the last sort of 24 months. I think there's this confidence, they're oozing out of confidence, but in order to turn India over in the manner that they've done, convincingly as well, highlights, the epitome of this team at the moment.
Yeah. Many congratulations from here as well, Vernon. Were you surprised with this abject surrender from the Indian side? Were you expecting some more resistance, more so after the first test loss at Eden Gardens, Vernon, from India?
Yeah, I expected some more resistance from India, but I think I said it yesterday. I don't think there's enough to convince me in terms of the technical ability, number one, to bat out today, nor the mental capacity, to knuckle down and actually, guts it out. So I just think, from the India's perspective, I think, they've obviously gone to the start of cricket. And I think in test match cricket, you still need to find a balance where you can be defensively sound, but also have the attacking game. And I think it's perhaps a part in their game that they will have to revisit, especially playing on home conditions where there will be a bit of turn. If you lose the toss, you're going to be up against it, but you need to find a way to get through those tough phases.
Yeah, they are thrown into a situation where India will find and face questions that they haven't had to face in the longest of time. They've now lost 5 of their last 7 home tests. The last time that happened, we'd have to go back to the decade of the 1950s. And Saba, while we will come to that, you were mentioning, as we saw the end of this test, that moment in itself, that last wicket, in a way encapsulated the series.
Yes, Yash, I think that actually summed up South Africa's effort. Last wicket of Mohammad Siraj, with 40 overs to spare, they had enough time and the resources to get rid of Mohammad Siraj. But here goes Marco Jansen standing at long on. He leaps to his left, stretches out his left hand and plucks maybe one of the best catch taken in the entire test series. So that's called commitment, that's called determination to win at all costs. And I think that's what was the biggest difference between both the sides. South Africa played like the defending champions of the WTC. On the other hand, this loss, however much it is distressing and all of us feel gutted, this is actually showing a mirror that the Indian team management and the Indian selectors have not done enough to build a strong test side. They should have already done that after a loss to New Zealand in the home series. We tend to forget things very quickly and we don't work on building a strong test side. And I think as a result, we have seen what has happened in this 2 test matches again.
Yeah, so many layers to unpack. I want to start the South Africa story with what is quite fittingly Simon Harmer finishing with a 6-fer. He who almost a decade ago had a tough start to his career in this part of the world. Back now, specialist spinner finishes this series with 17 wickets at an average below 9.
I think it just goes to show you can't buy experience once again. The guy had to go away, he had to really work hard at his craft, but I think the way that he's put to play, especially in this test series, just simply phenomenal. I think he outbowled many of the Indian spin bowlers whom I have thought that, if there's one particular aspect that will, where they will obviously be ahead of South Africa, will be in the spin bowling department. But I think him, along with Keshav Maharaj and a couple with the Samir Bowl, I think they've outclassed India in that spin department. But it just goes to show again, I think the guy's got over 1,000 first-class wickets. And, I mean, he knows his game inside out. I think he knows how to set up batters, which is an important part on playing on placid surfaces. And he certainly put a spectacle up on display in this particular test match as well.
And it is Simon Harmer who is the player of the series. Marco Jansen awarded the player of the match for his stunning all-round performance in Guwahati. But Saba, it is perhaps the biggest story of the series, the gulf between South Africa's spinners and India's spinners?
One of the biggest factor. But overall, if you look at the series, South Africa have outplayed and outclassed India not only in the spinning department but also in our batting. And in home conditions, our strength would always be on a strong Indian batting performance, and on top of that, a very efficient spin bowling attack. And both these factors, I think India has been undermined because of the superior performance by South African batters' application and both the spinners, Simon Harmer particularly, and then also Keshav Maharaj. Well, for that matter, even Muthuswamy chipped in today with the wicket of Sai Sudarshan. So I think in both these areas, which at one point of time was India's strength, India has capitulated quite easily, and I think that is the reason why we find ourselves in such a soup at this stage. 2-0 whitewash once again after the 3-0 loss to New Zealand. It should hurt us deeply, and it requires a deep introspection to wake up from this.
Yeah, pretty much every number you think of is a damning one from an Indian
Yeah,
perspective.
I also feel, Yash, that the decisive moment was when Sri Lanka, South Africa, on day one they were 247 for 6.
Yeah.
From there, day two, it was Muthuswamy, Marco Jansen, and Kyle Vernon who stitched some valuable partnerships. And India just allowed South Africa to get to a score of 489, and things started to turn the other way for India.
Yeah, Vernon, just to close the lid on the player of the series, Simon Harmer, of all the numbers that will be very damning for India, and South Africa have so many moments to be pleased of, so many records that will fall their way now. Simon Harmer finishes this series with 17 wickets at 8.9. No bowler has taken more wickets at a better average in a series in India, and that includes India's bowlers.
Yeah, I think obviously hats off to Simon, and the performance obviously put on display. But I think it also speaks volumes of the management at the moment. I think they sum up conditions pretty well. In the past, we'd have still played 3 to 4 seamers, even though it is Indian conditions. But I think this particular unit, they identify conditions and they adapt to conditions pretty well. So I certainly feel that a lot of credit has to go to management as well. Sometimes the subtle technical changes that they have made. We talk about shifting Tristan Stubbs up the order to combat between Kuldeep. I think that was another fantastic tactical assessment from the South African management. So again, I think we always talk about South Africans adapting pretty well, slow starters to series, but I think on this occasion they've started well, number one, and they just got better. I think if there had to be a third test, we could have been in for an innings win. But again, I think wonderful performance by Simon. And I think you need the backing from your management, from your coach, and that's the way out of your players at the end of the day.
Yeah, I want you to go further on just how much of praise South Africa deserve for the tactical side of things. There are lots of things that happened during the series, but even the call taken before this subcontinental cycle started of bringing players who they felt were specialists for this condition, that involved tough calls. Someone like David Bedingham, who was a vital enough member of the World Test Championship winning side, it's a tough call to say that, okay, fine, you're not the fit for these conditions, we'll go with the players we think will perform here, back them, and you're reaping the rewards of that?
Yeah, I just feel that's mature within that squad, from a management that they can have honest conversation, as to what conditions are going to be conducive to certain players. And I certainly feel that David Bedingham, he's good on surfaces where the ball come on, there's true bounce. I think he's had his challenges, with the turning ball. So, of course, straight up, you're not going to be suited or best suited for these conditions. And, we're going to replace you. It takes a lot of maturity, to have that kind of conversation with your players. But again, I think hats off to, the whole management team, for being able to open and honest conversation. And I feel it's perhaps lacking in Indian cricket at the moment is to have that honest conversation. Second to my point would be, I'm a massive fan when you play test match cricket that you play specialist players, and Their top 5, 6 for South Africa, they're all specialist batters. Yes, I mean, Aiden Markham offers you a bit of off spin, but they're still specialist batsmen. So, yeah, the responsibility and the accountability still lies with the top 5 to get the bulk of the runs. But again, just sentiment to the management style, number one, the trust they have in their players, the trust the captain, and vice versa. You need to be able to trust your manager or your coach, so to speak, as a player. And it's certainly rubbing off, and it's pleasing to see from a South African perspective.
I will take one word from that and spin it around to ask Saba Karim about the India context. And Saba, you shared a smile with me when Vernon mentioned specialists. India, who have been very all-round friendly in the last year, feeling the absence of specialist batters or even specialist bowlers?
Yeah, well, before that, Yash, you need to have an honest assessment as to where are we going wrong. Once you start to have a very practical review of your performance, only then you can think of going forward. So right now, most of us feel that instead of specialist skills, you have opted for multi-dimensional players, which is not conducive or not right for Test cricket, which is absolutely correct in our assessment. At the same time, one should also look at the flawed selection policies of the selectors. Whom are we taking now in the Test squad? At times, instead of addressing issues, we always brush it under the carpet, because we are playing Test cricket now. From tomorrow, after 3-4 days, we get into a white ball format, then everything is forgotten. This is not the time to do that. This is the time to have honest assessment, have a review of India's performance, and then see where are we going wrong. As I mentioned earlier, the selection committee and the team management together are not doing enough to build a very strong Test side. And to do that, you have to go back on the drawing board and look at players, specialist players who have done well for you at the Ranji Trophy level. Give them opportunity for India. There are a number of India A tours that are being organized now, and there is a reason behind it. So that should be your stepping stone. All those cricketers who do well in first class cricket, pick the specialist skill set from there, take them for India A tours, check them in different conditions, and then pick your Test side. Here, on so many occasions, we go on recency of performance from white ball cricket. That is not going to help us. And this is the time for everybody to kind of realize that you have to fall back on the trusted method of picking players from domestic cricketers, from domestic level, and then initiate them into higher level of cricket. So I think it requires a major overhaul. It requires a change in our vision. It requires more, I would say, a more pragmatic, way of handling things at this stage.
Two names stand out, jump out immediately when you bring up what you just did. The cases for Sarfaraz Khan and Abhimanyu Ishwaran, who've been pedigreed products of the domestic system, and you get a sense they were written off without being given a chance to fail.
You're absolutely right, Yash. We took both of them to Australia without even testing them out. Now they're out of the Test side. And before that, we forget, when we played the home series, we had, if I remember correctly, we only had one centurion from the Indian side, and that was Sarfaraz Khan, who hit 140 or 150, along with that partnership with Rishabh Pant. That was also in a Bangalore Test match. Apart from that, there were no other big scores from any of the Indian batters. And what have we done with him? We take him to Australia without even putting him in the Test 11. We throw him out of the Test side. Abhimanyu Ishwaran, he's been around for a number of years. He's got 27 first-class hundreds. Again, we take him to Australia. He's been part of the India A side, has led India A side, has scored runs in familiar conditions, even in overseas conditions. And again, without even trying him out, he is now out of the reckoning, it seems. So what does it show? It shows that there is a flawed policy. So I think with this new bunch of selectors, we've got Pragyan Ojha and RP Singh, who have spent a lot of time with us discussing all this. I hope we see a shift in their positioning, and they need to do a lot of scouting at the domestic level to find good batters and good spinners.
The arguments that could have been raised in Australia and in England were that, especially Ishwaran, he got a few of the tour games and he didn't grab that opportunity. But that argument doesn't hold when you're playing at home. Their track records are built over years of performing in these conditions or similar conditions?
Yes, but I think even overseas, you mean to say that you have picked a player on a tour to England for that matter, and that person gets to play only one first-class game, he doesn't score runs, and he's out of reckoning completely. And there are not that the other batters who got an opportunity to play in that game scored tons of runs. So you pick players on what you pick players on their class and on their performance that they have shown over several years. So this kind of selection policy does not bode well for Indian cricket. So we need a major shift in our stand. We need to do a lot of hard work, and I think that's up to the selectors to do that. I'm also looking at having very smooth conversations or smooth communication with most of the state selectors. You need to figure out what are the areas we are falling behind. As of now, I feel you need to have specialist, technically correct batters, and number two, you need to have spinners who will fetch your wickets on day one, day two. So go out, watch these domestic matches and find out such players, and then initiate them at the international level. That's the way I'm looking at it. Being part of the selection committee for about 4 years, from 2012 to 2016, you need to have vision and this kind of a review to take Indian cricket forward. We have fallen behind in Test cricket, let's face it.
Vernon, I appreciate your patience, and
and apologies for that, Vernon, from my side also.
I suspect there will be portions of this show where we will need some patience from you as I direct some of the India questions towards Saba. But South Africa themselves in tests, the way they have evolved, the way they made changes, and you've spoken through the length of our coverage this series of how in the last 2 years, since the time Shukri Conrad became coach, Temba Bavuma was appointed as captain, they've taken a lot of calls which have worked, and they've looked at a longer term picture. What are the lessons for an India to take from South Africa's journey of the last few years?
Yeah, I think for me, the lessons, I put it down to is also, South Africa, having an honest conversation with the players. I think one of the additions to Sukri's coaching staff was Esel Prince. We know how firm he is on scoring big hundreds. I think there's certainly been a lack of hundreds scored before he's taken the role. So I think in the last 24 to 30 months, that tally over 20, which is a massive shift in the hundreds column. So it is about taking ownership. It is about taking accountability. But I think at the end of the day, from a management point of view, it's also affording the players the consistency in selection, to perform in those kind of roles. So I think if there's something to take out of the leaflet of South Africa, is to back players in certain positions for a little bit longer. Because I don't think Test match cricket is the kind of format where you can, chop change and shift players like you do in T20 cricket per se. So you need to be a little bit more patient. You need to give the guys obviously a good run, particular position, and I think they've done, they're stuck with Stubbs. I think Stubbs obviously over the last sort of 12 months, perhaps lean in the in the runs column, but he's come good. He's come good at a good time for South Africa, and that's also speaking volumes of the trust that they have amongst each other. So yeah, I think. Look, you probably have a lot more question marks than answers right now in Indian cricket, but I think the philosophy is still simple. Test match cricket, has to be 5 days, and you can't always look for solutions. You have to look long term and back players, to the hill at the end of the day.
I'm loving that a lot of your answers are setting up my questions to take to Saba, and this time I'll focus on the decision making. So, all-rounders, they can't be a quick fix, which seems to have been the strategy that this setup is relying on. Where do India draw a line in terms of how they pick and construct their test setups?
Okay, so you possibly can't look at your coach and your selectors to perform for you on the field, number one. But yes, how do you assign responsibility is what kind of policy you are following in picking your test squad. Right now, as we see, what have we done in this 2 test matches? At Eden Gardens, where maybe 3 or 4 bowlers would have been adequate, we picked 6 bowlers. Here, what have we done? Where 4 and 5 bowlers would have been fine, we have picked another batting all-rounder, Nitish Reddy. So on both these occasions, you have missed out on picking specialist players in your 11. Not that you didn't have specialist players in the 15. You could have always done that. And if you haven't kept specialists players in your squad of 15, then there is something amiss. Then you go back to the way you have selected people in your test squad. So I would look at the selectors and the team management responsibility of picking in the right combination. But before that, you need to provide them a conducive environment for them to grow, and you offer them that much of trust and space. I don't see that happening as of now. I see a very fragile and a very scattered team, the Indian side. It is a young side. We keep talking about the transition, but for a transition to stand test of time, you need to provide them with that kind of environment. I find this side extremely insecure. Shubman Gill is the captain. He hardly participated in the test series. But having said that, there are other batters or other players who have put their hands up for selection. But here again, and this is not the first time, we go back on picking multi-dimensional players for test match, wherein you require such specialist players who have done well in the past in this kind of a format, if not in test matches, at least in 4-day cricket for India. So I think there is, what has happened today, Yash, this has been complete lack of fortitude, lack of temperament, lack of application, error in judgment, lack of footwork at times. So what does it show? To survive in these conditions, you need batters who have all these attributes. And we find ourselves on the mat because we fail to pick players who have these kind of qualities.
Two parts to that. I'll take the first around specialists, which is perhaps, and when you talk about a possible sense of insecurity in the setup, there's one number jumps out. 19 tests now under Gautam Gambhir. No batter has got 3 straight games at number 3. Is that a story in itself?
It is. So that's what I said at the beginning, Yash, that you need to, it requires a lot of commitment and the right kind of attitude to build a side. It will not come so easy. So you need to have an honest conversations with the team selectors, with the other stakeholders as to what kind of side we are building. And in home conditions for a number of years, we are used to winning quite easily because we have prepared turners at times, and we have had good spinners wherein R. Ashwin and Ravindra Jadeja would do the job for us. We also had Akshar Patel in between, who would come and roll his arm over and get those wickets on turning tracks. Our batting has always struggled on turning tracks, even in home conditions. But because of our superior bowling strength, spin bowling strength, we've been able to win test matches. But now if you want to take a step forward, you need to build a side that can do well in home conditions and also in overseas conditions. And to do that, you have to address issues. I just want to continue with this, and I go back to my earlier conversation. We have this tendency of putting everything aside because we look at white ball performance. We feel that white ball cricket we are doing so well. The one-day series is coming up, then the T20 series is coming up. We forget about our performance in Test cricket. We did that when we lost to New Zealand also, but the time is right now to address these issues so that we don't fall so low once again.
On the batters, while yes, India's spinners in the past decade played a huge part, you did have a batting core which even in spinning conditions used to bat long. I mean, of course, unfair to compare anyone from the present generation to the likes of Pujara and Kohli and what they established and achieved over a decade. But are India identifying or even giving the correct chances for a batter to reach a position where they could be able to play the kind of long innings and not just impact innings that are needed in tests?
Yeah, that needs a lot of thinking then, Yash. You also need to go back at the domestic level. What are we providing these young batters? And I see that even in the domestic cricket, if you have watched some of the domestic matches, we don't find these kind of surfaces. Whatever we saw today in this test match, this is the perfect test cricket for Indian conditions. Unfortunately, even at the Ranji Trophy level, we don't prepare such wickets anymore. And there is a reason behind it. I think it's 2012, 2013, when Indian board, the BCCI, decided that we should prepare fast and hard surface that will help our young batters to adapt better when we travel to Sena countries. So that wish has been to a large extent fulfilled. Now Indian young batters are more equipped to handle those kind of conditions. Unfortunately, in the bargain, we fail to prepare turning wickets also. So there is a generality which from where we need to make that shift. Now is the time for BCCI to come up with a system wherein you can provide both kind of surfaces. So for instance, when summer hits India, maybe in February, March, can we have drier surfaces? Can we get our batters to play more on red soil surfaces where they can practice or they can score runs on these kind of tracks along with those seaming conditions? That's how you develop not only pace bowlers, but you also develop specialist spinners as well as batters. So I think it is not a quick fix here, Yash.
Yeah.
That's what I said. You need to have that kind of vision as to where we want to take our Test cricket forward.
I can't ignore the sense of irony that a system that was put in place
Yes.
and succeeded in making India win tests in saner countries. We now stand at a place where India aren't winning any saner tests at home.
Actually, if you check with Vernon now, look at India's pool of pace bowlers.
Yeah.
It has improved so much, and that is why when we travel to either Australia or England or even South Africa, you don't find such fast and fiery wickets, because even South African board and the players there are aware that India have got a strong pool of pace bowlers who can do damage to the South African side. Quite similar to what South Africa have done here now. They brought in two experienced spinners who have done so well in these conditions.
Vernon?
Yeah, I think just on that point, I think that's where Sukhpreet Conrad has been so proactive. I think the South African A side is over in India at the moment. So, a lot of these players were over there, forming part. The captain himself was a part of, one or two fixes over there. So getting game time, in those conditions certainly help you. But I think that was also a big vision from Virat Kohli. And that's why you guys have seamers that can compete in England, Australia, South Africa. So, yeah, as much as you prepare for your home conditions and you want to win home series, it's also about keeping one eye out on, playing those away series, because we know in this World Test Championship cycle, you're going to have to play away games. And it's important that you compete on all facets. I think, and that's perhaps, the talking point here is about how do you compete and boss your home games, but also have the ability, to enable your players to go and compete abroad. And I just feel, India perhaps, got a bit too comfortable about playing, obviously on those kind of surfaces at home. So again, I think you rewind the clock to probably, 18 months ago, and you guys had a wonderful series down under, obviously beating Australia in Australia. I mean, that in itself is a tough journey. So I just feel that, again, it will have to boil down to the individual player. Yes, I mean, from a coaching staff, you can back a player, but also I just feel that you guys are chopping and changing too much. There needs to be a little bit more consistency in trusting players in certain positions, and ultimately you're going to draw the best out of players in that way.
Yeah, I want you to weigh in also on, say, the point we discussed earlier around batters and the younger batters, for whom, of course, it's a well acknowledged and accepted fact that as all format players who play a lot of white ball cricket throughout the year, adapting to tests and batting the longer game can always be a tough challenge. But many in India have also been absorbed by the test match batting chops of a Tristan Stubbs, who those who follow the IPL know is a dashing, explosive batter, but he also shows the chops of digging in and playing the long test match innings when he comes to the subcontinent.
Yeah, let's not forget, I mean, Tristan Stubbs, has had his own journey. I don't think he's made that transition straight away. I think it took a lot of backing from, the off, to stick with him. But I think also the one thing in Tristan Stubbs' favour is that he has senior players around him. And I think that was the luxury that India had for a very long time, whether they had two new batters coming into the system, into the team, he still had four experienced batters alongside him. And I think at the moment they are exposed a little bit in that avenue. So obviously four out of the top six being inexperienced batters, and that's a massive transition, to just overturn overnight. So again, I say it, these guys need a lot more time, obviously out in the middle, playing longer innings. I think the whole world has changed because of T20 cricket, so everyone wants to see this quick fire innings. And again, I make the point when I look at some of the Indian selections that I have made in this particular Test series, it is based on that quick outcome. It's not about the processes and running bowlers down. Make them come back in their fourth and fifth spells and then capitalize. And I think this particular test series, you could see South Africa almost illustrate that they're going to play old-fashioned hard test match cricket. Bring Bumrah, Siraj back in the fifth and sixth spells when they're absolutely gone, they're knackered, they've got no more energy left, and then you dominate bowlers. So again, I just think the old-fashioned test match cricket need to come back, and some of the methods that have worked back then. Respect the new ball, get yourself in. I think that's gone out the window. Basically, I look at the test match down under between England and Australia as well. The element of risk batters are willing to take up front. If you're going to play that high percentage cricket, you are going to offer up opportunities. And I think that's where, from a batting side of things, I think we're letting ourselves down. One, again, batters not trusting their defensive system, and almost now have made up their minds that the only way to defend is to be attacking. And I think that needs to change if we want to see proper 4 or 5 days of test match cricket.
Yeah, a lot needs to change. A lot is being asked, even as we speak. Gautam Gambhir is addressing the media. And Saba, I'm starting to get some of the comments in here. He was asked whether he thinks he's the best man for the job in Test cricket, to which Gautam Gambhir's reply was, it is for the BCCI to decide, but he believes he is the same guy who won India the Champions Trophy and the Asia Cup.
See, again, his white ball cricket performance. And that's what I've been saying. We tend to overlook our test loss, and we get influenced by our white ball performance. I'm not saying that our white ball team will not do well or has not done well, but there are different formats, and you need specialist players to do well in Test cricket.
He's also said you have to start prioritizing Test cricket if you are really, really serious about Test cricket. Put that in conjunction with the fact that India next play a home test 13 months later.
Yes, so India has enough time, the team management and the selectors, to have a relook at the way they have selected players for this format. It requires a lot of investment in terms of your of the way you are thinking for Test cricket, and there is so much cricket that is taking place. India A has got a number of tours lined up. So you need to create a scenario where which offers you the best opportunity to pick the best players for Test cricket. I agree with Gautam there that you need to spend more time in trying to pick the right kind of cricketers for the longest format of this sport. But at the same time, you need to have that kind of communication with the selectors and the team management, along with the state selectors, and for that to happen, I think it is the BCCI office bearers who need to address this and review India's performance. Only then they can take this forward.
So try and construct that roadmap. India now know they don't play a test match for the next 8 months. August in Sri Lanka is their next one. They'll play away in New Zealand. There's also 13 months to the next home series, which will be about a Gavaskar Trophy. What does the Indian cricket ecosystem need to prioritize in this period to begin to get better in Test cricket?
You know what, Yash, I think this WTC cycle is a perfect opportunity for India to have a very solid system to pick Test cricketers, because India play 2 test matches in Sri Lanka, then we go to New Zealand, difficult conditions, overseas conditions, then Australia comes to India to play a home series. So this is an ideal opportunity for the selectors and the team management to put their head down and look at players who can do well in these in variety of these conditions. For instance, Sri Lanka, you'll get turning tracks there. You play against Australia, again you'll find this kind of tracks what we have seen in this test match. You go to New Zealand, seaming conditions. So let's look at players who can do well in all these conditions and pick players on performance that they have shown in the past 2-3 seasons at the domestic level.
I'm going to go back to the comments coming in from the Gautam Gambhir press conference. He also says, when asked about the batting collapse, it was not just skill set, it was mental application. Do you agree with that point?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's what we've been talking about. There is a complete lack of temperament. There was no application shown, that willingness or the desire to stay at the crease and play a longish kind of innings. We saw not only in this test match, even in Eden Gardens, our 2 best batters on these kind of tracks was Ravindra Jadeja and Vashi Sundar, and Kuldeep Yadav, because of his defense. And that's the kind of attitude, that's the kind of skill set that is required by the top order batters to set up the game for you. South Africa did that. They were helped by the lower order batters also. But they learned so much from their batting performance from the first test match at the Eden Gardens. India unfortunately failed to do so. They should have realized that to get a big score, you need to spend time at the wicket. And I think none of the Indian batters showed that kind of temperament or skill. Leave aside Ravindra Jadeja and Washi Sundar.
All right. We go back now to Vernon Philander, and we thank you once again, Vernon, for your patience. The Gautam Gambhir comments are done for now. But South Africa, let's look at the bigger picture. Let's start with the captain. Temba Bavuma now has the winningest record of any test captain. 12 matches, 11 wins. No one has won more tests without suffering a loss. That includes a World Test Championship title. That now includes this. Just how good is Temba Bavuma, Vernon?
Yeah, there is some record for Temba. I mean, 100% win record, of course, having drawn the one. But I feel, just the way that he's obviously marshaled his troops, the belief that he's obviously got from his teammates. I think there's a real trust system, and I keep speaking about this trust system because you can't do it without trust. And I think the conversation is key as well. And I think he's one of those guys. He's got.
I think we seem to have lost Vernon. We'll come back to him, but take it further, Saba. Temba Bavuma, just look at this series from the time it started to now. Even after this game, you'd probably think that knock in Kolkata in those conditions in the second innings, it defined the day, it defined that game, it has gone on to define the series.
Yes, I think Bavuma along with the coaching staff, including the head coach Conrad, I think both of them have worked very hard in building this side. We see so much of trust. We see a perfect environment for young batters also to grow. I think Tristan Stubbs is a brilliant case in point. For him, he happens to be a white ball specialist, but for Bavuma and the team management to show this kind of faith that you are good enough, you do have the right kind of technique and skill to perform in these conditions as a test batter, that goes to show. And they're all such players who have the promise. They've been backed by the selectors and the captain Temba Bavuma. I think Bavuma has really come on his own by performance, by sheer grit, and I think through his performance he has earned the respect of his teammates. And there is celebration from everybody for each and every moment of success that Bavuma achieves on his own and also as a team. I think that goes to show that there is such a lovely rapport and such a great camaraderie in the South African side.
Right. We have Vernon Philander back. Vernon, I'll ask you to add any thoughts on Bavuma and also just emphasize the significance of this series win for South Africa while reminding our viewers that they've achieved this without Kagiso Rabada featuring.
Yeah, I think just to finish my point on Temba, I think he's had to overcome so much adversity. So he understands better than most, what it takes to make players feel welcome, what it takes to make players feel, a part of the system. And that's really the trust that he's earned from his team. I think there's also a wonderful, in terms of this, I think they're really celebrating each other's successes. I think I spoke from the outset, I don't think there's real superstars in this team. So there's no real player that you highlight on, the Ingle win. So I think, of course, we miss Kagiso Rabada, perhaps the only real superstar, but even he's, bowing down to the team standards, to, what the team obviously requires of him. And that's important. I think at the end of the day, you don't want one or two players to stand out and catch all the attention, but it's all about a collective unit. And I think he's done a fantastic job together with Sukri Conrad. And I think I want to speak a little bit about Sukri Conrad and the contrast between the two coaching staffs. I think Sukri Conrad came in as African test coach, and you can see there's a real emphasis, there's a real priority to put Test cricket back on the map from a South African perspective. Whereas I think from an Indian perspective, it's more about the white ball, isn't it? I think at the end of the day, it is about winning ICC trophies, and I think Gautam's outlook on cricket is perhaps towards that trophies. So again, I think where you plough most of your energy in, I think that's where you're going to reap the rewards. And I think South Africa's done a fantastic job in the way that they've built this test unit. Of course, Sukri Conrad has taken on the white ball format as well. So it's going to be interesting and key to see how he goes about adapting this young group of players into the ODI format as well as the T20. There's a T20 World Cup on our doorstep, and it's going to be interesting to see shift focus from this test format into those T20 formats.
Yeah, it's still just the one test series loss since Shukri Conrad's appointment in Jan 2023, and that was a series where South Africa didn't have any of their first choice players. You could argue he's not put a foot wrong in the last 2.5 years, barring that press conference after day 4 in Guwahati. Saba, a great point coming up through our comments, and our viewers have lots of comments today, of course, as you'd expect. It comes from Satish Chandra Pichika that you can't just gather 4 days before a test match and expect to play exceptionally well. South Africa, on the other hand, played similar conditions in Pakistan before coming to India, and it's a point that also came up last year. New Zealand arrived here on the back of a series in Sri Lanka.
Yes, so it goes to show that you have to have better preparation before you play a test series. Now, for instance, at Eden Gardens, we prepared a ranked turner. But how many of the batters whom you picked in the 11 have had the opportunity to play on such tracks? All those who play domestic cricket, you don't get to play on those kind of wickets anymore. So the entire planning from the Indian side was completely wrong, and you need to have more faith in the kind of players you pick in the 11 and give them enough preparation to so that they're able to perform well in these matches. So whether it is at Eden Gardens or even here in this Guwahati test match, a similar thing unfolded, because it shows lack of preparation by also the batters. For instance, right now in the Indian setup, we have, if I am correct, we have 2 sidearm throwers, and they are meant for the batters to get used to the pace. We have bowling machines, but I really wonder, do we have any spin bowler specialists? Do we have that kind of a system where you're used to playing spin conditions? I don't think so. So when we talk about preparation also, is that how much time are you spending in preparing batters especially, or even spinners for that matter, to bowl on those conditions that you will get to play? And the other point I want to make, and I think after the first test match I said this, that the time has come now for India, especially from BCCI, to move away from the system of allowing the team management to prepare the kind of wickets they want. Because the biggest stakeholder to drive test cricket forward, in addition to the spectators, happens to be our parent body, that is BCCI. It is for them to decide in which direction test cricket has to grow or has to go. It is not up to the team management to decide that, okay, we are going to play only or such rank turners in home conditions. You need to move away from that, and that is how you start to build a side by picking players who can do well in different conditions. And I don't see that happening at this stage. So this is the time for BCCI also step in a big way and have that kind of vision that can drive test cricket forward.
To the point on the challenge of preparation, does it almost feel like a moot question given what we know of India's calendar and the way it stacks up? Is it almost impossible to imagine a scenario where it's possible for the bulk of the test side to actually get what we would call the adequate time to prepare for a test series?
Yes, as of now, that's the biggest issue, Yash. But then it is also time for the selectors to think over, to think about preparing specialist players or picking specialist players for different formats. You had Shubman Gill, who played a T20 series in Australia. He flies straight in to Eden Gardens just 3 or 4 days before the test match starts. So as a captain, he's also the captain of the test format. He doesn't even have the time to have that kind of exchange or interaction with the players, or the kind of wickets he would like to play on. So I think these things do have an effect on the entire preparation of the team. So I think that's another. So you have enough time now. The next test match you play, I think, is about 7 to 8 months. So you have enough time for the selectors and the team management to think over this and then work out a plan wherein you start to build a strong test side.
All right. So final comment from you on India's situation, Saba. You've been a selector yourself, and you've given parts of this answer throughout the show, but just to put it all together, what are the steps India need to take to rectify their present test match situation?
3 major steps, Yash. Number 1 is to have an honest assessment, honest review of India's performance, not only from this test series, but also what transpired in Australia before that against New Zealand in the home series. Number two, there are two biggest concern right now for India is to find batters who can do well for you in home conditions, as well as when India travels outside India, especially in SEMA countries. Okay, in this there is another factor attached to it, that is to find good spin bowlers who can do well for you on flat decks, whether it is in India or even when we traveled to England, we found flat tracks there also. Number three is not to pick white ball performers for Test cricket. Go back to Ranji Trophy, go back to your India A 4-day matches, all such players who have performed well, get them to play in different conditions, and then find the best person who can step into this Test side. So majorly I think these three steps are very important for the Indian selectors and the team management to take at this stage.
Right. We will see how much of that is implemented. This is the first time India have lost 11 tests in the span of 2 years in their entire test history. That is on India, but Vernon Philander, thank you again for your patience. I was waiting to give you the last word on this. This year in South African cricket, a World Test Championship crown, now this to add to the crown. Is it almost bigger given the context of how this has been the toughest test in the sport?
Absolutely. I think they deserve to be celebrated. I think they've gone against all odds to beat India 2-0 in home conditions. I also feel that, just from an overall, you talk about confidence, you talk about players being insecure. I think every player is insecure because it is a game of outcomes. But the way that, this coaching staff has really turned the mindset around of these players, the belief they've built, to go and win the series away from home on a consistent basis, I think that's really impressed me. But I just think they deserve every accolade coming their way. And I think beating India in India, I mean, it's generations of heartache, generations of, guys.
All right, we seem to have lost Vernon. Wanted to thank him for his coverage, and we will wait for that, Saba. But closing thoughts from you on South Africa?
Oh, brilliant performance. It should make them so happy and so proud. Then a lot of kudos to the entire side, to the entire South African management and the selectors. They had the right kind of vision before they came to the shores, not only here but even in Pakistan. Pakistan, after losing the first test match, they came back and they leveled the series. That gave them immense confidence, and they've carried that confidence here in India. And I think this combination of the right kind of batters and the right kind of bowling combination has really helped them to trounce India and to dominate India in this test series.
All right, we have Vernon Philander back. Vernon, if you want to complete that answer, and before you leave us, do let us know how will you be celebrating and how will South Africa be celebrating. All right.
I think he started celebrating already, that is why
it is possible, and it would be richly deserved for him, for South Africa. That is where we will call time on proceedings for this series. Big thank you to Vernon Philander, who's been with us throughout the series. Big thank you to you, Saba Karim.
Thank you so much, Yash.
Not just for all your time and company, but also the patience through what was a bit of an examination with lots of serious questions. Thank you. That is where we call time. The sun is shining on the Rainbow Nation, even as India slip deeper and darker into a test match abyss that they have not seen for decades at end. Thank you for being part of the coverage on ESPNcricinfo Matchday. A long time till India's next test match, but the Indian cricket calendar is packed, so be sure to stay tuned to ESPNcricinfo for all the updates. Thank you for your time.